Hello and welcome to the Big Podcast Equipment Guide. This is a small series of videos where I will explain what devices you will need to record a podcast if you want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or up to 10 participants, including up to 4 remote guests over the phone or Skype or Zoom. I will also explain how to set up phone interviews on various devices using the much feared Mix-Minus. Let's get on with it. What I'm about to explain in this video is how to set up the Mix-Minus for phone interviews using an analog mixer. To record a remote interview for your podcast, the single most important term that you'll need to familiarize yourself with is Mix-Minus. As a quick reminder on what is a Mix-Minus, when recording a phone interview, you are not actually speaking into your phone, but into a microphone. To lead all the voices into your recording device, you will need to combine your voice and your guest's voice, so you will apply a mixer, which is integrated into many recording devices nowadays, so you won't necessarily see a mixing board, but for the sake of understanding the Mix-Minus, let's showcase it with a mixing board. Your voice goes into the mixer. The voice of your guest from the phone also goes into the mixer. What a mixer does is that it combines everything that goes into it and creates a single stereo track of them so that you can record and also monitor everything. However, your guest at the moment hears nothing, as again, you are not talking into the phone but into the mic. So you need to route your voice back into the phone for the guest to hear you. The problem is that by default the mixer sends out, a mix of all the voices, which also includes the guest's voice, which in return creates an annoying feedback echoing into the guest's ears while talking. So you'll need to remove their voice from the mix that is sent back to them. In other words, what they will receive is the full mix minus their own voice, and that is Mix-Minus. When recording a podcast, there are 3 essential technical goals. 1. Record everything in good quality. 2. Make sure that your remote guest doesn't hear an echo or feedback of their own voice. And 3. Record everyone on a separate track, otherwise post-production will be a nightmare. Let's see how to do just that. For fulfilling these 3 goals, when you're using a simple analog mixer, your setup will look like this. You'll have a microphone to record your voice in good quality, your simple analog mixer to set up the Mix-Minus so that the guest does not hear themselves while talking, an audio interface to separate the mixer's single stereo track into 2 tracks, and this is why it does not matter if your mixer had a USB or not, as most cheap analog mixers send out only a single stereo track via USB even if they do have a USB port, but not the separated audio tracks of yourself and your guest. An iRig2 adapter to connect the phone to the mixer. By the way, I'll have a separate video on how to connect an iRig2 adapter to the mixer and to a phone. A mobile phone, and a device you will be recording to. We will be discussing the scenario when you are present and you are calling your guest over the phone. What you need to do is the following. First, connect your microphone to a mixer, i.e. the Mackie Mix 8, which happens to be the one I'm using, and it does a perfect job. Have an audio interface sitting nearby. Take your iRig2 adapter and connect it to your mobile phone. Then, connect the iRig2 to the mixer. Plug one end of the mono TS 1/4" cable into the 1/4" amplifier output on the iRig2 and the other end to one of the line input channels on the mixer, the ones that accept normal jack plugs. Make sure that the through FX switch on the iRig2's side is switched to FX. You could, by the way, connect it to any of these line level inputs on the available channels. Now you will be able to record whatever your guest says on the phone. Really important. Amongst the knobs below where you have plugged in the iRig2, which is called the channel strip, find the one that's labeled as aux. Turn it down by turning it fully to the left. Now that you've turned down the aux button for the phone's channel strip, the knobs below where you have plugged in the iRig2, search for the output on the mixer that says aux send or aux out. From there, you can route the mixer's output to the iRig2's 1/4" input marked with the small guitar icon. This is what your guest will hear, and this is exactly why you have turned down the aux knob before, because the aux send, from which the red line comes out back to the iRig2, only includes signals from the channels which have their aux volume turned up. You have just turned it down for the phone input on channel 3/4, So what the mixer will send back through the iRig2 to the phone, so to your guest, is the only input that has it turned up your microphone's voice on channel 1, but not their voice from channel 3-4. And tada, there's your mix minus. You hear everything, the guest on the phone only your voice, without their own voice echoing back to them annoyingly. So far so good. But how do we achieve the third goal and separate the two voices into two separate audio tracks so that both you and your guest will be recorded on your discrete audio tracks? Now what you have to do is look for the pan labeled knobs both on your microphone's channel strip and on the phone's channel strip, and turn one to the left and the other one to the right. What it does is that it pushes one voice in the stereo sound full to the left and the other one full to the right. Now, the mixer's main output also has a left and right port. The white line is connected to the first input on the interface and the red line to the second input. Red is always for right, easy to remember. So your first input on the audio interface will hear only the left side of the stereo mix coming out from the mixer, which is your voice from the microphone, and the second input will only hear the right side, which is your guest's voice from the phone. And this is why you have panned the two channels left and right. Now all you have to do is set the first port from the audio interface, which is normally displayed as input 1, as the input to channel 1 or track 1 in your recording app, and the second port, which is marked with input 2, to track 2. Now your voice and your guest voice will be recorded on two separate tracks, which is what we wanted. Plug your headphones into the audio interface and start recording your interview. Now I spend so much time on the mix minus because it is vital to understand how it generally works. Even if it may be set up easier in certain other equipment that are more specifically podcast focused. Nevertheless, later, especially when I'll be discussing the scenarios, when more remote guests are invited, you will need this knowledge to understand what's happening inside your equipment and why I have set up the kits the way I did. At this point, hats off and big thanks to Ray Ortega, whose videos explained it the best and through whom I could finally understand as well how it works. Should you happen to have an analog mixer that has a built-in audio interface that is capable of sending out not only a single stereo track, but separate audio tracks via USB, then you don't need an audio interface. Analog multitrack USB mixers are, for example, the Allen & Heath ZI-10 and 10FX, the Soundcraft Notepad series, the 5, the 8FX and the 12FX, the Soundcraft Signature 12 MTK, which stands for multitrack, the Presonus Studio Live ARC series like the AR8C and the AR12C, and the Tascam Model 12. The mix minus setup works the same way as described before on all of them using the aux send ports and the iRig2 adapter, due to the fact, however, that they can send out separate audio tracks via USB recording. You don't have to pan channels left and right for multi-track recording, these can do it out of the box. Some of these even have features specifically useful for podcasting, like built-in mix minus for phone calls or SD card recording. Make sure you stay tuned for the big podcast equipment guide for 2021 when it comes out later on this channel. With that, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to learn what devices you will need to record a podcast, if you want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or up to 10 participants, including up to 4 remote guests over the phone or Skype, and learn how to set up phone interviews on various devices with Mix Minus. Take care.